Xbox is synonymous with first-person shooters and brought us one of the biggest IPs in the gaming industry to this day. With Halo ultimately changing the FPS market we know and love, there are so many great games right now that we can delve into, especially on Xbox Game Pass. With that in mind, today we will be covering 20 incredible first-person shooters on Xbox Game Pass in 2024. My name is Fletcher, this is Xbox Nation. Subscribe for more Xbox content every other day, and let's dive right in. Immortals of Avium is a sadly well-known game, recognized for flopping so hard due to its poor sales upon its release. However, despite this, the game itself is not actually that bad at all. It's actually an incredibly satisfying experience, and many speculate that its poor sales have to do with the AAA giants that launched during the same release window, its exorbitant budget, and the risk of it being a new IP. In Immortals, you step into a fantastical world where you play as Jack, an up-and-coming mage in a magical war that is tearing apart the different factions of Avium. This game absolutely nails the magical FPS shooting and over-the-top action which we come to expect with these sort of releases. With the main protagonist Jack firing multiple different coloured beams of magic from the palm of his hand, you can't help but be in awe with this game's visuals. Superhot is an FPS experience like no other. You play as a geometric human figure engaging in a variety of shootouts against other geometric human figures. The notable difference between this game and others like it is that time only moves when you do. Every step your character makes pushes time forward, so if you stop moving, time stops and your enemies will remain motionless. This allows you to take stock of your position, dodge bullets, toss projectiles, and take cover at a measured pace. This slow take on the shooter genre makes Superhot feel more like a puzzle game, but witnessing your actions in real time after clearing a level makes you feel like a veritable badass. Boomer shooters have seen a resurgence in recent years, and none are delightful in mimicking the aesthetic and providing absolutely solid gunplay as Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. You step into the shoes of a mighty space marine, eradicating the forces of chaos on a forge world. And in glorious pixelated combat, you splatter and demolish warp scum in red giblets with your bolt gun and chainsword. You even have a dedicated shout button that allows you to condemn foes and praise the Emperor in the middle of a gunfight. The action is fast-paced and reminiscent of the good old Doom days, but has some amazing quality of life adjustments. This is such a great game and such an awesome boomer shooter for the future, and I cannot wait to see what's next. Though it may double tick the boxes of yet another World War II shooter and also yet another Battlefield clone at first glance, Hell Let Loose actually brings a relatively fresh layer of strategy, teamwork, and situational awareness your typical team-based games tend to leave by the wayside. Matches are absolutely massive 50 versus 50 Battlefield affairs, but where Hell Let Loose stands out from the pack is in terms of teamwork and communication. Classes and roles are also unique and expected to fulfill specific functions, and teamwork of these classes is a must to secure victory. This is a great first-person shooter for fans who are looking for a more realistic approach, especially as one shot is all it takes to take you down. Fat Shark brought the signature cooperative horde-slaying formula it perfected with Vermintide into the 41st millennium with Darktide, and after nearly a year's delay, it has finally managed to make its way onto Game Pass. Darktide puts you in the boots of one of four warriors, drafted into the service of an Imperial Inquisitor attempting to uproot a particularly nasty band of cultists and traitors that have made a mess of Hive City Tertium. You can choose between a mighty tank like Oghren, a fanatical melee-intensive zealot, a sharpshooting veteran trooper, or a psyker wielding the dangerous mystical energies of the warp. After a bit of a prologue, you'll immediately get down to business, taking on missions alongside three friends to slay horde after horde of Nurgle-worshipping cultists. A single Quake game was never going to be enough for us, and now thanks to the surprise remastered release of Quake 2, we're just beginning to whet our appetite for phenomenal boomer shooters on Xbox Game Pass. Though people widely cite Doom and the original Quake as being the forefathers of first-person shooters, Quake 2 did a lot to solidify the foundation for this juggernaut of a genre. You can dive into a local multiplayer match with some friends or play through the co-op campaign, sprinting into the labyrinth tunnels and colossal areas of the Strog City. No list of the best first-person shooters on the Xbox Game Pass would be complete without Atomic Heart. While its terrible dialogue and predictable story are undeniable, Atomic Heart is an engrossing FPS game that caters to the kind of single-player experience that many enjoyed while playing BioShock. Atomic Heart is in no way reaching the same heights as Rapture in terms of environment dominant gunplay or narrative, but has enough components that are there to make it worth your while. In between the protagonist spouting off nonsensical sentences and being rude as heck, there are some thrilling combat situations with an emphasis on dodging attacks that you don't always see in a first-person shooter. Atomic Heart is not just a masterpiece, but is a lot of fun and well worth playing via Xbox Game Pass. GoldenEye 007 is undoubtedly one of the most aged FPS games you could play these days, but it's an odd sort of delight to experience one of the landmark titles in the genre on a newer console. Now on Game Pass, GoldenEye lets you spy the wonders and tribulations of what it meant to be an FPS game back then. Graphically, the game is nowhere near the visual wonder of some other titles on this list, but controls-wise, this plays way better on an Xbox Series X and S than it ever did on the Nintendo 64. If you ever have time to spare for a little jaunt down memory lane, James Bond's most classic video game is an ancient shining star in the Game Pass library. There are still some issues that persist with Battlefield 2042, but given that is the latest entry in the Battlefield series, it's also the one that is receiving some of the most support right now. New maps, specialists and vehicles have been added in the time since its release, all of which have served to make it a decent offering in the Game Pass library, courtesy of EA Play. Despite its incredibly problematic launch, Battlefield 2042 is now a serviceable game that's a pleasure to dip into when you need some mindless multiplayer fun. It's in no way the cream of the crop, but it is nothing to scoff at when you're craving those awesome Battlefield moments that the series is known for. Before we dive into the remaining games, do consider subscribing for more Xbox content every single day, as 88% of you have not subscribed to this fast-growing Xbox channel. Also, let me know in the comments below what your favourite first-person shooter is. My favourite FPS series is Battlefield, and I'm really hoping the next entry will be a return to form for DICE. Thank you again for your support, make sure you smash that like button, and let's dive into the remaining games. Now, Deathloop is not your typical first-person shooter, as you can very much stealth your way through the different areas of this game. Colt Vaughn, our time loop-breaking protagonist, can sneak his way around in an attempt to kill all the visionaries on the island of Black Reef. But honestly, where is the fun in that? Deathloop features a variety of guns that have a blend of old-timey and modern looks to them, and if your shooting your way through the turn lists is not loud enough for you, you can also add one of the most satisfying kick mechanics in the history of gaming into the mix. It's so much more measured than your average FPS game, but it is brilliant in its execution. Even though Perfect Dark is definitely one of the more aged inclusions in our best FPS games list, it was ahead of the time when it was first released in 2000. Aside from the dated graphics, the game still holds up fairly well today. This game is frequently praised for letting players have the ability to shoot guns out the enemy's hand, and Perfect Dark contributed to the groundwork for many of our favourite mechanics that we see in modern first-person shooters. Using guns as melee weapons, open-ended levels, and home-based section where you could train and hone your skills were just a few features that we loved about this game. With a reboot on the horizon and what we recently saw at the Xbox Game Showcase, it's the perfect time to get into Perfect Dark once more. Doom 2016 really revitalized interest in this grandfather FPS series, but Doom Eternal entirely redefined this formula. Already known for its fast-paced action and demon-slaying antics, Eternal ramped up all of that exponentially. The dance of glory killing and shotgunning foes became far more tactical, as certain demon types require specific weapons to defeat, and ammo counts across the board took a nosedive. There is no other FPS game in the genre that requires split-second chess moves the way that Doom Eternal does. Add to that the improved story environments, the tougher challenges to complete, and Doom Eternal is one hell of a game in the Xbox Game Pass library. Halo is back in form in Halo Infinite, the latest installment in the iconic series. The multiplayer is bombastic fun, and the campaign breathes fresh air into this franchise. 343's marriage of an open-world game with their classic Halo DNA might seem like an unlikely pairing at first blush, but experiencing Infinite's campaign firsthand is something of an eye-opener concerning Halo's vast potential for emergent gameplay. Narratively, players get to experience the Master Chief's most personal story to date, as his journey across Zeta Halo to defeat the remarkably credible threat in the Banish dresses up dust and echoes from his past. And now that campaign co-op has finally been added to the game, up to 4 people can engage in chaotic fun as they grapple their way across the ring. Courtesy of EA Play, subscribers of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate can experience the Crysis series in all of its glory. Though it has largely fallen out of the cultural zeitgeist, it was something of a graphical benchmark at the time of its release. You could not go anywhere in the world where someone wouldn't ask if your PC could also run Crysis. The first Crysis is still a first-person shooter game well worth revisiting, and the stylish nature of Crysis' gameplay made it a fan favourite. Even though some aspects of the game have aged pretty poorly, it's a callback to the blossoming of the genre and how it progressed the industry forward to this day. Plus, thanks to these new current-gen consoles that people now have in their homes, the question of whether or not Crysis will run on a given setup is more or less unnecessary. Cooperative first-person shooters are a delight to play, and Deep Rock Galactic combines jolly cooperation with procedurally generated caves. Up to 4 players can team up to mine precious minerals or escort heavy machinery for the Deep Rock Galactic Mining Corporation. Working together is important if dwarven survival is to be ensured. Waves of insect-like glyphids go out of their way to swarm your team of intrepid fellow employees while you're out on the job. While Deep Rock Galactic is not the typical first-person shooter experience seen in multiplayer action titles, it's one game I cannot recommend enough. And for my Rock and Stone brothers, you can find this one on Game Pass right now. If you're looking to get the most bang for your Game Pass buck, the Master Chief Collection should be any FPS enthusiast's first stop. The Master Chief Collection encompasses the entirety of 4 mainline Halo campaigns, as well as 2 most prestigious spin-offs, ODST and Reach, in addition to a huge amount of multiplayer suites. Put simply, there is an unprecedented amount of FPS goodness packed into this tidy little package, and I give it credit to anyone who can complete the main story within a week. These are also some of the biggest genre-defining games that were ever released on Xbox until this day, and there is a reason why so many still play these excellent collection. It may have been broken on launch, but 343 did a fantastic job turning the ship around and making it a worthwhile experience. Even though Prey is played through a first-person perspective, the game encourages you to stop and consider your options before engaging in a shootout. As a matter of fact, you are bound to be at a disadvantage if your playstyle is shoot first, think later. Players must roam the hallways of the Talos 1 space station, taking care not to draw attention from the Typhoon, a deadly alien species that's been let loose. A variety of tools are at your disposal to circumvent or trap the Typhoon rather than blast them to bits. However, you do get a handful of guns to lend a helping hand when your creative endeavors for sneaking past them definitely fail. It was such a shame to see Arcane Austin close their doors recently, as Prey was so much better than their most recent release in Red Bull. Now, one game that always got underlooked on release and is still quite a bit to this day is the masterpiece known as Titanfall 2. More and more gamers are experiencing this first-in-class FPS, and many will put it down in the top 3 FPS games of all time. In this package, you get an incredible story that follows a rookie pilot and his Titan, and we never expected to go on such an emotional rollercoaster along the way. Add that to an incredibly immersive multiplayer suite with fantastic movement and stupidly tight gunplay, then you easily have one of the best FPS games of a generation. I cannot recommend Titanfall 2 enough, and if you haven't played this game yet, then you are certainly doing yourself a disservice to the FPS genre. The new Wolfenstein games really revitalized the beloved series with a gripping narrative and precise gameplay which fans have been clamoring for years. You will take on the role of BJ Blazkowicz as he fights his way against the Nazi regime in this alternate universe when they won World War II. Mechanized monstrosities and black-helmeted Nazis comprise the majority of his foes, and intense encounters and set pieces make the New Order an unforgettable addition to the series. It is a perfect blend of old gameplay callbacks and fresh takes, and there are a ton of wow moments through this lengthy runtime. Don't get me wrong, this game doesn't break huge new ground in the FPS space, but it does incredibly well in holding its own in today's gaming market. If you're looking for a competitive multiplayer shooter to sink your teeth into, then Rainbow Six Siege is definitely up your alley. Imagining Counter-Strike with destructible environments, more varied objectives, and a roster of unique characters with particular skill sets and perks will put you in its ballpark. Matches are often tense and short-lived. Players are divided into two teams, attacking and defending, and given a short prep period before engaging one another. Teamwork is ultimately the name of the game, as operators that successfully play off one another's strengths will find themselves taking the win more often than not. Siege has now been running for over 7 years, and it is very clear to see why, especially with how much content and support it's had from its growing community. What first-person shooter is your favourite of all time? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more Xbox content every single week. A big shout out to our members of the channel, and you can also join for as little as 99p to get videos early, be entered into giveaways, and so much more. Whilst here, why don't you check out the video on screen now of the 30 best Xbox Game Pass games in 2024 so far.